So as many of you know, myself and my fellow co-founders of the posiCOVIDity Innovation Challenge are strong proponents of diversity and inclusion across business and entrepreneurship. We're lucky to have Dr. Moss join us here today, who is truly a champion of these values and will speak to some of her personal thoughts and experiences. Dr. Moss brings over 20 years of experience in college access and education to Oliver Scholars, a 35-year-old educational nonprofit that identifies high-achieving Black and Latinx students for admission to selective independent day and boarding schools and offers them support through graduation from competitive colleges. She is a vocal proponent of expanded educational access for underserved communities. She has also previously served as the inaugural Chief of Staff of the New York Civil Liberties Union, and also as the second Black woman to serve as President and CEO of the YWCA of the City of New York in its 150-year-plus history, and also as the award-winning CEO of the Harlem Educational Activities Fund for 10 years. She was appointed by Mayor de Blasio to New York City's Commission on Gender Equity and serves on the board of directors of the New York Women's Foundation. Her contributions to education and the social sector have been recognized by the New York State Education Department and the New York City Comptroller's Office, among others. Her 2018 TED Talk on student potential has garnered over 1.9 million views. She holds a Master of Arts and Masters of Education degrees from Columbia University Teachers College, where she also completed her doctorate in organization and leadership with a focus on education administration. And finally, she received her Bachelor of Arts from Swarthmore College with a degree in both English literature and history with a concentration in Black studies. So before I turn it over to Dr. Moss, we have a couple fun facts here on the screen and would love for each of you to make a quick guess at her 2 truths and 1 lie. So feel free to type in the chat box below with some of your guesses. I'll give everyone a couple seconds or so. So starting off here with the truths, yes, Dr. Moss used to play the clarinet, and yes, she in fact did attend international boarding school at age 9 in the Barbados, but no, she is not actually a mother of 2. So thank you everyone for your guesses, and without further ado, I'd like to turn the floor over to the one and only Dr. Danielle Moss.
Hello and good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing? I don't know if you can wave. So I just want to thank Joanna and the team for extending this invitation. I'd love to talk to young professionals and hear about what you're up to, and to the extent that it's possible to share some of the fruits of my experience over the last several years, hopefully in ways that will benefit everyone. So thank you so much to the organization for extending this invitation. So with that, I'm going to get started. You know, when I sat down at my computer to write this keynote, I had the intention of saying something meaningful and inspiring. I wanted my words to offer comfort and hope and possibility. But, you know, 2020 has been a hell of a year. I have barely left my house in months. I've been glued to social media and CNN, consuming other people's news, opinions, fears, and meltdowns for weeks. My staff and the young people we serve have tried hard to keep it all together in the midst of a global pandemic. I watched a Black man, George Floyd, be murdered by the police for all the world to see, and looked in wonder at the global activism his death has ignited. My daughter made signs and marched in New York City. My bonus daughter, fully masked, marched for racial equality in Edinburgh, Scotland, and Amsterdam on the other side of the world. And all the while, there are still children being held in cages apart from their parents, and the lines for food at most pantries in metropolitan areas stretch for blocks. And millions of Americans are out of work and facing what some have termed as an eviction tsunami. Did I mention that 2020 has been a hell of a year? Despite the chaos and dimness of this moment, I haven't given up completely. I see the light and activism of a new generation of leaders, like the folks on this call, emerging unapologetically, boldly, decisively, and you all give me hope. You are savvy, you are insightful, you are innovative, and you are relentless because you know that this is what it will take to live in a world of your own creation. The promise that each of you represents makes me hopeful, but I am cautiously optimistic. We have been down this road before. Our activism has been incited by outrageous injustices before. We've made declarations to move the needle on racial, gender, sexual orientation, oppression, and equality before. We know the heat you feel on the back of your neck when righteous indignation explodes. But what's different now? And where do we go from here? So like many of you, I've spent a lot of this time thinking, discussing, and reading up on leadership. And recently I was reading Brené Brown's Rising Strong, and I couldn't stop thinking about a quote she referenced by Teddy Roosevelt, of all people. And the quote is, "It's not the critic who counts, or the one who sits on the sidelines pointing out your mistakes, or who always has something to say about how you could have done things better. The credit belongs to the person who's actually in the arena, face down, getting dirty, fighting valiantly, who knows in the end the satisfaction that comes with victory, or who even when he or she fails knowing that they dared greatly." Isn't that powerful? So with that, I decided to title today's remarks, "Welcome to the Arena." The arena can be your job, a relationship that you value, a goal that you've set for yourself. The arena is your actively lived experience at a moment and space and time when you are present, when you are striving bravely, foolishly, and in spite of, or even because of. The arena is simply life. And so here are a couple of things I've learned about leadership and life that I want to share with you. Whenever I start a new venture, I always begin with the impact in mind. I've never gotten any role or opportunity that I intentionally set out for. I'm always of the mind that if you focus on having a specific impact on the world, the universe will position you in ways that are appropriate to your gifts and skills. The politicking required to angle for things often serves as an unhealthy distraction from the things that are possible when you just show up as your best self. I wanted to help people and to be in a position to elevate the voices and experiences of those who are not often given the opportunity to speak for themselves. It was my focus on that intention, I believe, that led me to the various roles in the human sector that I've enjoyed. I didn't have a specific job or education in mind, but I was pretty clear about the impact that I wanted to have on the world. And so that allowed me to kind of move in the direction of my values when opportunities came up. The next thing I would say is know your values. The toughest part about the world of work for me has been walking into situations where I thought I knew the rules of the game, and then discovering that other folks were operating from a very different playbook. Grad school can't teach you how to navigate that. Only experience can. And sometimes the road is incredibly unpredictable. But guess what? Be clear about who you are and what your values are and never sway from them. In an unpredictable world, the least thing you can do is to remain recognizable to yourself. The next thing I would say is be in charge of how you feel about yourself. Validation is important and people's gratitude can feel good, but be careful about whose validation and whose gratitude you prioritize. My greatest moments of self-doubt has come as a result of criticism I received from people who were actually on the sidelines, you know, the ones that Brené and Teddy talked about. Self-reflection and constructive feedback are important, but the power over how you feel about yourself as a professional, as a leader, as a human being can't be up to other people. So just keep that in mind. Next, I would say don't turn a temporary situation into a permanent circumstance in your head or in your life. Tough times don't last always, or so the saying goes, unless that's your choice. I'm perplexed about people who talk about challenging circumstances at work or in their personal lives as though they have no control over those situations. It's like being in a jail cell and complaining about the jailer when in truth, you're wearing the key around your neck the whole time. So if you made a decision about your life or your career that doesn't work for you anymore, you now have your own permission to make a different choice. Last week, I wanted vanilla ice cream. This week, I might want to try butter pecan. Nothing earth-shattering is going to happen as a result of that new choice. Move on if you need to. You're talented, you're smart, and you're probably funny. So feel free to start over as often as you like. The hardest lesson I think I've had to face is that my past successes are not a gateway to perfection. I think this is particularly an important point to folks who prided themselves on always getting things right. I saw a quote recently that women in particular are judged by their accomplishments and men are often judged by their potential. If you're in this room, the chances are that you're probably used to winning. You've worked hard, you've enjoyed the rewards of your hard work, and you've gotten a lot of things right. Recently, I faced a failure, and I have to admit that failure after so many wins can feel like it's almost the end of the world. I was distraught, I was losing sleep, I was completely stressed out. And then a voice in my head asked me, who do you think you are? What gives you license to assume perfection because you've gotten a few things right? You're still gonna lose sometimes. You're gonna miscalculate people, situations, opportunities, and challenges. Just recalibrate and keep going. No matter what your haters say, your mistakes don't make you less competent, they make you human. The other thing I've always kept in mind as I kind of move through the world and through my career is help someone. Help people, help as many people as you can. And I'm not standing here because I'm smarter, faster, better, or more educated than most people. I'm a living testament of the power of a strong family, a cohesive community, and sometimes the kindness of strangers. I haven't done anything in my life on my own. I've had the benefit of generous souls along every step of my journey. And I know that when I win, my parents win, my pastor wins, my neighbors win, my teachers, my friends, they all win. I am what happens when people help each other. And there's not a day that goes by when I'm not thinking about how to pay it forward. Don't let your own insecurities or competitiveness get in the way of your generosity. Share your contacts, your relationships, your expertise, and your access without an agenda. People will remember you, and that good energy definitely comes back to you later on. The other thing I've had to recognize as a leader is, I don't always have to have all the answers or be center stage. The best leaders are actually seasoned stagehands. Recently, I had a talk with one of the managers on my team, and I talked about my theory of the seasoned stagehand. In leadership and in life, people fail not because they don't have great ideas or good execution, but because they don't know how to share the spotlight. As leaders, sometimes the success of our businesses or organizations is closely tied to our personal brand, credibility, and our ability to shine. But sometimes the success of a business relies on your ability to make the people around you and on your team feel capable, competent, and effective. And that means that you're not always in the spotlight. Sometimes you're backstage working the curtains. So know when and how to work the curtains when it counts. One of the tougher lessons I've learned as a C-suite leader is to address the elephant in the room. I'm generally conflict averse. I hate confrontation. I think it's important to work in a harmonious environment, but as a leader, I've come to understand that ignoring the elephant in the room can undermine everything you're trying to achieve. Whether the elephant is a dysfunctional staff or team member, a program that's not working, a disruptive board member, when you ignore the elephant in the room, two things happen. The elephant condemns the impact and credibility of what you're trying to achieve. And your team members' level of commitment and motivation is often directly tied to how you respond to that elephant. People are always watching you when you're in a leadership role. They're watching how you respond, and they're waiting for you to be courageous, to strategize about how to deal with these elephants, and to practice how you will approach the elephant. Sometimes after a healthy dialogue, you come to know that the elephant wasn't as big as you thought it was. And sometimes we've missed cues or created a story and later discovered that there wasn't an elephant in the room after all. The other thing that I have to talk about, particularly in this moment, is racism, privilege, and inequality. There is no conceivable way to solve the seemingly intractable challenges in our communities without being intellectually and personally available for discussions about systemic and institutional racism. America was born with a cancer, and racism is it. Educate yourselves on the American legacy of anti-Black racism and intentionally create spaces to challenge and dismantle privilege, unconscious bias, conscious bias, and the systems that have deliberately excluded Black folks specifically, as well as other people of color at large. Whether the issue is education, economic mobility, justice, healthcare, or housing, we can trace the current state of Black America back to specific practices and policies that were designed to limit our ability to participate fully in all aspects of American life. Work intentionally to confront your own biases and then speak up with your family, at your job, in your communities, in your organizations on issues of racism and other forms of systemic oppression. We have what it takes to become a much more inclusive and just society. We just need to find the will to do it. Be relentless and tenacious in your commitment to creating the kind of world we all deserve to live in. The last thing I'll say is you guys are powerful. Be humble. Who was your best teacher, boss, and why? Who was your worst teacher, boss, and why? You remember all of those folks, don't you? You remember the impact that they had on you, whether it was good or bad. What you say, how you say it, who you say it to, it all matters. Sometimes your words and actions have a permanence that you could never have imagined in a million years. You can be a mentor. You can build people up and inspire the people around you. You can be the kind of leader your team will look back on and want to emulate. But you can also be the kind of leader that causes people to leave an organization, who causes harm and trauma. You can change a life or you can destroy a life. You are that powerful. So be humble, be accessible, invest in meaningful relationships, admit when you're wrong, listen to and include the folks in your organizations and in your communities with the least amount of power. Always be ready to learn, always be ready to work. You are powerful, you can change the world. I can't say that I have this whole leadership thing figured out, but I can say that when you show up into the arena with your whole self and sincere intentions, the good that results will likely exceed the best of what you could have imagined was possible. So with that, I just want to say thank you again for having me join you this afternoon.